Thank you for joining us for this panel, Paths to Progress, Empowering Entrepreneurs and Driving Investment in Africa's Future. Hi, Veronica. Hi, Mike.
Hello.
Thank you for being with us today. Now, I'm going to start with you, Veronica. You've been relentless advocate for Africa and the world, for the rights of refugees and the potential of migration. You now have a great project you'd like to share with us today, I believe. Can you tell us more, please?
Yes. So thank you so much for having me. And I should speak in French.
Or English. I think we have headsets.
Ok, alors je vais parler en français, c'est ce qui était prévu.
Great.
Alors merci beaucoup de me recevoir ici, je suis vraiment ravie. Merci aux organisateurs pour cette excellente conférence. Et alors oui, comme tu l'as noté, ça fait plusieurs années que j'œuvre et que je crois beaucoup en la jeunesse africaine, en ses talents, sa créativité. Et c'est pour ça qu'à New Wind, on a vraiment transformé ce projet de vision en un modèle d'affaires qui est rentable pour toutes les parties prenantes. On a un impact très ciblé sur la dynamisation des startups, de l'économie des startups et aussi sur la création de l'emploi. Avec des tech leaders de la Silicon Valley, on travaille sur cet algorithme qui accompagne véritablement les entrepreneurs et les investisseurs. Donc les entrepreneurs dans leur capacité à produire un produit qui soit directement et le plus rapidement possible adapté au marché. Donc product market fit as soon as possible pour eux. Et puis du côté des investisseurs, on essaie aussi de vraiment les familiariser davantage avec les marchés émergents, les familiariser également avec les instruments financiers qui existent, qui sont spécifiques aux marchés émergents. Et donc voilà, il y a ce besoin d'alignement qui se fait gentiment et l'algorithme nous permet vraiment d'aligner cela. Donc en fait, à New Wind, on est vraiment sur cette mission de dynamiser les startups et de créer de l'emploi.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Now, Mike, you have a lot of experience in the solar energy industry because you had a company in the US a few years ago, and then you decided to build Energea. Can you tell us more about the origins of your company and what are your hopes for the African continent?
Yeah, absolutely. So after doing solar energy for the last 17 years, everybody's aware of these large commitments from large financial institutions, hundreds of billions of dollars going into renewable energy every year. And there are projects that are perfectly suited to that large format of capital. They're generally huge projects and in the developed world. But climate change requires a much broader perspective, and it needs much more flexible forms of capital to be able to develop projects all over the world, in places like Africa, where unique forms of capital are needed that can manage the flexibility and the risk and the types of things that are particular to the challenges of developing projects in a continent like Africa. And we tried to think about where are we going to source the capital for these types of projects. And meanwhile, the largest pool of capital in the world is actually the American individual investor. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 trillion of capital is wielded by American individuals, and it is largely on the sideline of climate change. So we created Energea in order to connect that capital to the opportunity to invest in renewable energies in Africa. And we have thousands of investors on our platform. We've raised over $130 million, and we've been able to put that capital to work in projects not only in Africa, but also South America and the US, as our investor community builds a portfolio of renewable energy projects and simultaneously provides capital to the projects that really need it to get up and off the ground.
So what would, let's say, what would a company, that would need investment, why would they choose Energea and not a private bank, for example?
Sure. So one is that there's not enough banking capital that is familiar with the asset class of renewable energy that can underwrite the asset class and that can deliver on the capital promises. So a lot of these projects are sort of stuck, and we can unstuck them because we don't require any debt. It's a cash investment. And generally, our investors will own the solar energy asset and collect the revenue as the customer pays their energy bill. And that creates a return on investment for our investors. But it also creates a savings opportunity for whoever's buying the electricity, and it creates an economic opportunity for the developers that are seeking capital for their projects. So it's a win-win situation, and essentially the projects that we pursue lack competition for capital.
Amazing, amazing. Now, Veronica, you have this amazing project, and you've been seeking support from the private sector, especially in Switzerland. And today you have big private sector groups sitting here in the audience. What should they be doing in bringing more capital into Africa, and how can they support your project?
So, I think what we hear, ce qu'on entend le plus souvent quand on discute avec les entrepreneurs, c'est qu'ils ont besoin de capital patient. Donc vraiment adapter la structuration des fonds par rapport aussi aux besoins sur le terrain. Et puis, ce capital patient, il s'obtient notamment avec des organisations philanthropiques, des fondations. On travaille avec certaines d'entre elles en Suisse. On est déjà bien établi avec des organisations philanthropiques, avec les centres académiques et le secteur privé également. Je pense que les partenariats stratégiques sont vraiment clés pour unlock toute cette dynamique-là. Donc, ce genre de conférences sont aussi des vecteurs qui ouvrent le champ des possibles. Donc, voilà, je pense que échanger un maximum et puis me retrouver à la fin de la session sera déjà un bon début pour enrichir les discussions.
En parlant d'ouvrir les champs du possible, Mike mentioned earlier, talked about the business model behind Energea. Do you think that kind of business model could be suitable for, startups, for example, in Africa, maybe having, a platform with investors, individual investors, abroad that would actually invest and believe in some of those startups?
Absolutely.
And is this something that, you may be throwing out there if someone has an idea?
Absolument. On en a discuté plusieurs fois encore aujourd'hui du potentiel en termes de démographie. Il y a un réel potentiel à unlock et les modèles de business, les business models sont vraiment à la hauteur aussi sur le continent africain. Il y a les risques qu'on perçoit de l'extérieur et les réels risques qui sont là et c'est souvent de la perception, donc il faut aller sur le terrain et rencontrer aussi le secteur privé qui est déjà bien vibrant.
Yeah. En tout cas, s'il y a des personnes dans la salle qui sont intéressées par ce business model, you guys can come and meet Mike at the end and, might give you some insight now. Mike, what is the most important action that needs to be taken to improve access to energy and infrastructure on the continent, according to you?
Ooh, that's a good one. There's a lot of different tools in the toolbox for bringing energy to underserved communities. There's financial models and there are policy models that have already been proven to work all over the place. We need utility companies that have the appropriate capacity to accept energy from solar energy assets and have the technology to be able to manage energy from renewable energy assets. That's a big one. Also, when it comes to credit, investors want to know that their capital is safe, and they want to know that they're going to get their desired return on investment, because a lot of my clients are investing money from their retirement plans or money that they set aside for education and other needs. So it's really important that we're able to manage risk. And one of the other things that we can do to accelerate the deployment of these projects is to work with organizations like the World Bank and the IFC and Bridgewater and others to help support the credibility of the payee. And that will open up an enormous amount of capital that's ready and willing to go. When we opened up the Energea platform, we started off with a product in Brazil, and it was very high returns, and it did very well. Then we opened up a product of US-based solar energy projects. And our third product was this Africa-based portfolio. And we weren't sure how well it would raise capital, and it's done tremendously well. There's a lot of people who want to put their investment dollars into projects that have a huge impact on people, as well as the return on investment. The bigger problem is not raising the capital. The capital is there. What's the more challenging side of the equation is getting projects that are appropriately priced for the associated risk so that we can trade. And that's going to have a huge impact as we start to see more projects come online that meet that criteria.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Now, to both of you, the end of the year will be very busy with many opportunities to ensure progress on the issues that we care for. You have the annual meetings organized by the World Bank and the IMF. You have the COP29, the G20 summit, and the EDA replenishment in Korea. Before we close, is there one thing that you want all the participants today to take away from your presence here, one message, one action that we should all push for before the end of the year? Honneur aux dames.
Je pense que, alors, on en a déjà aussi beaucoup discuté hier et aujourd'hui. La situation sécuritaire en Europe est de plus en plus fragile, donc les budgets vont changer en conséquence, et notamment sur l'aide au développement. Et je pense qu'il y a 3 acteurs qui peuvent vraiment jouer un rôle excellent à ce niveau-là. Tout d'abord, les pays africains eux-mêmes, en créant vraiment des conditions favorables pour les entrepreneurs, pour les investisseurs, oui, mais pour les entrepreneurs également, sur la question notamment de la fiscalité, vraiment alléger un maximum leur trajectoire pour qu'ils puissent être habiles et avancer de manière agile. Et aussi, bien sûr, sur la question législative et régulatoire pour les investisseurs, vraiment créer des conditions favorables pour qu'ils voient clairement ce qui leur attend une fois qu'ils sont sur place. Le deuxième acteur, c'est bien évidemment le secteur privé. Le secteur privé a aussi son devoir cette capacité de déployer son capital. Et là, je les encourage aussi vraiment à travailler avec des organisations philanthropiques pour blend un maximum ce financement. Et finalement, je dirais que les jeunes aussi ont un devoir de résilience. C'est pas évident, mais je pense qu'ils ont tout le courage et la force pour avancer, et on doit les soutenir et leur dire de ne rien lâcher.
Merci beaucoup. Merci. And Mike?
Well, for us, like we said, we really believe in the strength of people gang tackling big problems. And with technology enabling more of that to occur, we envision tens of thousands of American investors collaborating to invest in power plants that will empower millions of African businesses and homes. And in order to do that, we need to make some noise. We need to let people know that the opportunity is here. We've created the gateway for that capital to find this very impactful and economically reasonable path to development. And we're looking to make as much noise as we can about our platform, that people can put their money where their mouth is on climate change. They can make a return on investment. We've earned our investors more than a 12% annualized return since we opened our doors 5 years ago. This is a real asset class. It deserves every investor's real attention. And the more people that participate, the faster we can solve energy problems for the continent.
Amazing. Make some noise. We need to make a lot more noise. And before we wrap up, Mike, I know that you have an organization called Big Life. Can you just touch a little bit on that? Because we're talking about paths to progress, and it's definitely up that alley.
Sure. In a different channel, we look at Africans as an opportunity for tourism and conservation, are 2 big industries that will affect the continent. And I'm a board member of a nonprofit organization called Big Life that's based in Kenya, where we've employed over 400 Maasai members of their community, and are trying in every way to assist them in conservation of their precious wildlife, which is a huge magnet for tourism dollars. And also conservation itself is an industry and a job creator. So between the work that we do in the energy sector and the work that we're doing in a nonprofit vein through conservation, we think there's a lot that we can do together with this continent.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Mike, for everything that you shared today on the path to progress, empowering entrepreneurs and driving investments for Africa's future. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.